Let's get a voice note. Is it from Liam? Or we know it's the old one. Sorry, we'll get another voice note in a second. Emma Woolf is here. Yeah, so the storm Bert has battered Britain, but also what else has battered Britain is the way that all of the different agencies of this country seem to be operating. The police, it turns out, on the front page of the Daily Telegraph, 60,000 hours they've spent looking into cases of non-crime hate crime. Now, I said this all last week. I was under the impression that the last government under Rishi Sunak told them to stop doing it.
Stop doing
but
it.
they haven't stopped.
Yeah,
they obviously enjoy it.
And the most senior, former Met Police Commissioner, Sir Bernard Hogan-Howe. We all remember I think he's Lord Hogan-Howe now.
He is.
He's come out, front page of the Telegraph, and he's saying this is absolutely ridiculous. 60,000 hours, and it'd be a lot more than that. I'm sure it's a lot more than that with police trawling through Twitter and all of that nonsense. It's probably 60,000 hours that are officially logged. He's saying, you know, we need them back on the streets, basically, or fighting crime. I
mean, do you have this sense that there's a room somewhere in London where there's all these coppers sitting there hunched over their computers, literally monitoring people's tweets?
I do,
going, well, there's one, you know, flag that one up, take it over to, Sergeant Jones over there.
I think they love it. I'm sorry, I'm sorry, and no disrespect to serving police officers who do a fantastic job on our streets. We have to say that. But no, I think it's an easy job. I think to sit around in the office or at home scrolling through social media is a much easier job than getting out there running after yobs, you know, tackling...
running after people with machetes, cyclists.
Going after cyclists, going and investigating burglaries, doing all the boring copper stuff, which is really important, and it's not being done.
Well, my father used to say, don't worry about what people say, just look at where they spend their time. And if the police are spending most of their time on this, then it's a massive problem. And they've got a new sort of instruction, it says. The Home Office is going to issue common sense guides for non-crime hate incidents, and so it says police will be told only to record non-crime hate incidents when there is a clear risk to community tensions.
Well,
now, hang on, what does that mean?
But then they have to go and investigate, and then they start wasting all these hours. We don't want them investigating this stuff. We want them first and foremost fighting crime.
Well, the clue's in the name, isn't it? Non-crime. It's not crime, so don't do it.
And also this thing about a hate incident, of course we don't want racism, of course we don't want homophobia, we don't want the things that we don't accept anymore. We all know that. We almost police ourselves. People don't do that, and it's not acceptable. But this thing about non-crime hate incidents, that's people saying, I'm offended by this. I'm offended by Alison Pearson's tweet. You know, how many hours later... all that wasted
Alison Pearson, of course, who's now been cleared, and has now got an awful lot of questions.
But somebody was offended by something or other. Well, this is absolutely ludicrous. This is not what the police should be doing.
No, of course. But, I mean, talking about non-crime hate incidents and/or hate crime, I mean, there's quite a distinction between the two things because, you know, there's already laws in place to protect people from anti-Semitism. The question is whether the police adhere to them. Islamophobia, the same thing. You know, there's all sorts of laws which are already in place. I mean, I talked last week or the week before about a load of graffiti that was put up in Abbey Road outside the EMI studios. Pro-Palestinian graffiti, basically. They cleaned it all off about a week ago. It's all back again now. We'll show you the pictures at some point over the course of the show.
Well, I find that offensive. And if I said
that's supposed to be against an anti-Semitic law, isn't it?
But also, Mike, I sort of defend the right to be offended and to think, well, that's a load of nonsense, that graffiti, you know, and then for someone to clean it off and then they put it back. This is part of a vibrant society where we, of course not anti-Semitism, of course not racism. But I mean, you know, yes, you are going to be offended at times. People are going to say hurty words. That's the point. This whole non-crime hate incident just means that people aren't allowed to open their mouths. No, they're not.
The petition latest, by the way, 1,810,000 now and climbing. So we're getting up there. We'll keep bringing you updates on it, of course. Kelly in Wakefield says there's even a watch party for the petition on YouTube. But I just want to say Labour's plan to shake up the welfare system will fail because well after this budget, the so-called jobs won't be there as employers won't be able to afford to take new people on. Well, that's what I was getting to before. Front page of the Times this morning, basically Rain Newton-Smith, who's from the CBI, says that the budget has made it harder for business to take a chance on hiring people, and basically the budget has undermined the government's mission to get people back into jobs. So you know what's going to happen here. The government's going to say, we're going to create some jobs, we'll make the public sector even bigger than it used to be. It used to be 1/3 of the economy, now it's half of the economy. So half the people working in this country are now working in the public sector, which is why it costs so much money to do everything.
Which is why it's so inefficient, which is why we have a bloated NHS that is not fit for purpose. We have that whole middle management layer. We don't have, you know, more more nurses and doctors. This is really bad. This is the CBI conference that's happening in London this week. Apparently Rachel Reeves is going to be there. But the head of the CBI is saying, 2/3 of companies are going to be hiring fewer people.
Yeah.
They simply can't afford it.
Well,
She says employers are in damage control because of the tax rises.
Yeah.
And, Reeves has just come out and seems so anti-business. She doesn't get anti-working people as well.
Right.
Big business, small business, she just doesn't get it.
The only people that they're interested in, really, are people that work in the public sector. If you're a train driver, you get more money.
Yep.
If you're a doctor, more money.
Yep.
Police officer, more money. They've given more money to pretty much everybody in the public sector. And, of course, if you're in the private sector, you've got to pay more for workers. You've got to give them more national insurance money to the government. It's absolutely unbelievable. So, in the end, I'm afraid Rachel Reeves only seems to have one budget for the people that she likes and another budget for the people she doesn't like.
And it's all so illogical. We've gone over these figures so many times, and you can see, I don't know, imposing tax on private schools is going to add to the bill because of the bill for state schools.
Yeah.
Things like things like pensioners, it's going to add to the health service, to the NHS costs, because you're going to make people very, very cold and very, very sick.
And all of these
so
things...
the numbers don't actually add up at all.
None of them do, because a lot of the public schools have now found a loophole where they can charge VAT back to the government for projects that they undertook up to as many as 2 or 3 years ago.
Exactly.
And many of them are only charging parents 16% VAT instead of 20, because they can claw that back from the government as well. So, there's a whole raft of things which show the government haven't got their sums right, because all of the money they think they're going to make, they're not going to make.
They're not going to make, and they're often very, very small sums, like the farmers' inheritance tax, which is causing such distress and such anxiety, and in some cases suicide, let's be honest, to farmers, and actually is a drop in the ocean compared to the money that, as you say, they're just doling out to train drivers or whoever.
Exactly right. Coming up, we're going to talk about Adele. She was in tears apparently over in America at Caesar's Palace giving her final show. Yeah. And she said, I don't know when I'll be back. I mean, don't hold your breath, Adele.
Give me a break.
I'm not going to be buying any tickets for it anytime soon, but thank you very much indeed. Let's get a voice note from James.
Morning, Mike. James here. Just regarding Keir Starmer, he sounds like a broken android that needs charging. My name is Keir Starmer, and I used to be a farmer. The guy is a total plank. Hopefully he won't be there in another 4 years. I don't even think he'll make another 4 years, Mike. Anyway, mate, keep up the great work.
James, brilliant. The great thing about the audience on this show is that they totally get the fact that we are ridiculing this government more than we're doing anything, because they are ridiculous, and Starmer is ridiculous, and he is. It's Keir Starmer, I used to be a farmer. Because he came out and said it. Do you remember? He said, my family are all from the country. Yeah. Really? Well,
literally,
North London.
what? The next thing?
North 1, I think, is the postcode for Islington, where he lives.
NW5, actually.
Is it?
Yes.
And the bottom line for him is that he wants to try and be all things to all men and all women. He can't be.
No, when he came out and that he'd been a farmer as well as his father being a toolmaker, as well as, I don't know, ballet dancer.
Oh, do you remember his uncle? His uncle who got torpedoed in the Falklands War.
Oh, yeah, of course.
Which didn't happen.
I think Rachel Reeves served in the First World War, didn't she?
She did indeed. She's also the first woman on the moon.
First woman on the moon, and also she won Crufts last year.
She did, absolutely right. It's absolutely incredible stuff. We've got loads more going on. Emma Woolf is here. It's 6:30.